Well, what in the hell is this?
I apologize that no one has said anything about this until now, sir.
Listen, son, as commander-in-chief of the greatest standing army on this planet, I should have seen this a year ago. Call the Joint Chiefs to War Room XX15.
I understand completely, Mr. President.
This meeting is not to be recorded. Upon the revelation that it has, the guilty parties will take part in a secret trial, with myself sitting as judge. Then I'll watch them be placed against a wall and shot. I believe my advisors that were left over from the previous administration when it came to these monsters. I firmly believe that they are an imminent danger, along with the latest string of UFOs. But gentlemen, I would be doing yourselves as well as the American people a grand disservice if I didn't use the powers of this office to firmly put in place legislation to better protect the people from these so-called cryptid animals.
There was apparently a similar werewolf-like creature displaying high levels of intellectual understanding in the northwest region of Dogman National Forest in the town of Stanton. We'd have precisely 3 weeks of prep time with the option of recruiting a ground team or snipers before we booked our cabin. It's always the same situation if there's an offered option for backup on a job. You have to understand that we almost always work alone. More than one person had been killed by this creature. People are under the impression that every monster that is captured or put down is done by one cloak and dagger like shadowy ABC agency, but that couldn't be further from the truth. It's still a government agency with red tape, nepotism, politicking in the offices, sick time, paid vacations, and of course, the occasional staff meetings where goals are set and the occasional complimentary statements are made for arbitrary achievements. The old pecking order was firmly in place at the agency. I had to save my travel receipts to be reimbursed for what I paid out of pocket. Hotels or cabins had to be booked by one of the office secretaries after approval from the financial department's pencil neck number cruncher. Imagine, you're a white-collared insurance adjuster, working for the most massively successful firm there is. The exception is the insurance policy you sell is making sure beasts and monsters don't kill people, or don't kill that many at least. I hate driving. The incident of the little boy that went missing in Yellowstone back in '52 assured the agency wouldn't allow anyone to fly to locations under any circumstances. One of the most well-known incidents of a missing child in Yellowstone National Park occurred in 1952 when a 2-year-old boy named Keith Parkins disappeared. You see, Keith was visiting the park with his parents and sister on a camping trip. On August 15, 1952, the family was staying at the Canyon Campground, and Keith's mother was preparing dinner while his father was away fishing. Keith was playing nearby with his sister, and his mother asked her to keep an eye on him, while she stepped away for a moment. When she returned, Keith was gone. A massive search was conducted, involving hundreds of people, including park rangers, volunteers, and even the military. The search lasted for several days, but no sign of Keith was ever found. The disappearance of Keith Parkins remains a mystery to this day, at least to the general public. The military created a smokescreen for 3 agents to put down the female Harry Scary that kidnapped and took care of Keith as one of her own. He was placed with a husband and wife that worked for the agency. He'd be waiting for me as my medic for this operation. It would be 4 a.m. before I pulled onto the logging road that led to our cabin. Imagine, you're looking at the craziest thing imaginable. Picture it in your mind, whatever it is, or it might be. Disgusting or scary or horrific, whatever. Now make that thing 80% more embarrassing. And that's what I was looking at. The cabin door was ripped off the hinges. Then I saw the lower half of an extremely, ridiculously overweight man. I thought immediately that it couldn't have been Keith. Nothing could or would prepare me for what was to come next. I draw my firearm and very slowly approached the scene. This was supposed to be our cabin, but now I was staring at the lower portion of what had to be a 500-pound man wearing rubber ducky boxers. From the smell of it, I placed the corpse at 2 days old. Predators and something bigger looked like it took turns gnawing the top portion down to a nub right at the hips, but nothing touched the lower half at all. I inspected the remains for distinctive marks or tattoos, red marks, dots between its toes. I thought it strange that someone who was obviously dangerously overweight would be a secret heroin addict as well. His legs and ankles swelled like ham left in the sun. I carefully circled the remains of the man until my back was facing the cabin. Suddenly, that electromagnetic heaviness overcame me. No slow, creeping transition. Immediate silence from the night's creatures. No wind. My fight or flight response kicked in immediately. Too fast. I panicked. It's here. I heard the tires of a vehicle which kept my attention forward a fraction of a second too long. I could feel the ferocious blitz of the claws at my back, knocking my legs from under me, and the breath out of my lungs. The vest stopped the claws this time, but springing to my knees, I could see him lurching, only feet away, ready to pounce again. He studied me with those human-like eyes, analyzing everything, every muscle twitch from fear. The vest will not hold for a second strike, I thought. So in one motion, I raised my .45 and sunk shots right into his knee. 2 more shots in quick succession entered the left knee, but it didn't even make him flinch. This was ridiculous. It almost sounded like the bullet hit metal, but I was in a panic. I couldn't be sure. Its anatomical makeup can't be based on anything known to nature. Nothing organic, though it yelps like a scalded basset hound as it leaps into a tree with minimal effort. The pivot on its right wounded leg where he'd been shot gripped me in the same fear of the one that savaged me. The ugly and graceful demon disappeared long enough to get spotlighted by my medic. He opened up with his 9mm as the light attached to his car pierced through the fog. I just began to notice. It was all going very wrong. We'd lost control of the situation before we could even assess it. You could make out the silhouette of the beast that blocked all the light that poured through the leaves of the tree. Every round from 2 clips apiece landed, but it didn't even flinch. We both just watched the creature standing silent on a branch within the darkness that engulfed it. Mind you, this all happened over the course of barely a few minutes. I started to feel panic overtake me again. My stomach was in knots and the monster had managed to crack my short rib, so breathing was even painful. I wanted to look over to my partner, but I was transfixed on this thing. Seconds later, as if on cue, his eyes light up like street lamps. You could see the dimensions of the chambers within the glowing red eye. His pupils were burning like coals glowing in a campfire. It hated us. I could feel it. The cryptids all seemed to bring with them an unworldly aura. The static electricity seemed almost like a weapon meant to disorient the senses, force you to freeze or make a mistake. High adrenaline activities were required by all field agents for a year prior to taking any field assignments with the interior agents. The cryptids' disorienting environment they brought with them would bring the most battle-hardened agents and soldiers into a state of complacent fear. The quiet, we called it. It dropped like an elevator that safety cords failed to the ground beneath the tree. The earth shook underneath its massive frame. I reloaded without taking my eyes off of it and aimed as Keith yelled, "Grenade." This drew the beast's attention, and his reaction time wasn't quite quick enough as the pineapple grenades exploded mere inches from his face. We waited for a very long time before we approached the body. We both watched very intently, mesmerized by what we witnessed. The wound around what appeared to be a metal skull had began healing. I snapped out of it upon hearing Keith's voice say to
run.
My feet immediately began to follow my old friend's direction until the idea of ending this madness struck like lightning. I told him to toss me a grenade, and he did so without protest. I then grabbed the bottom jaw of the beast so his surgery-sharp teeth wouldn't rip through my skin, pulled the pineapple grenade's pin, and shoved it as far down his throat as humanly possible, and then kept pushing. My arm receives superficial cuts as I pull it out of the monster's gullet. I run and dive just in time to miss most of the bone fragments and carnage exploding into the orange morning sky.
I think we're gonna have to bring in some...
No, I cut him off halfway.
Man, listen, this isn't our game anymore. There's people for this type of thing, and I know this isn't your first rodeo. We'll be written up, and that's 2 blemishes on 2 otherwise spotless ledgers.
But
That's protocol, man. The big boss who loves you so much wouldn't sanction something so far removed from protocol.
I understand that completely. All the same, no one's coming here. Not right now.
Sun's up, pal. This is Sean talking. I'm just going to radio cleanup and our guy at the park. That's giving you a 9 to 13 minute window to get your samples.
I stopped staring at the corpse of this monstrosity long enough to look at my partner and see the knowing in his eyes. It's almost as if he was some gypsy mind reader. Hey, actually, would you mind? He immediately shook his head, sternly no, saying he would not break protocol and risk his ledger being opened for something that would possibly benefit only me. I had to work quick. Shit. I took out the K-bar I carried and quickly cut away some of the ridiculously dense muscle and managed to get a small sliver of it. Then what I assumed was a thin layer of fat with hair attached. I had some Tylenol in my pocket, which I immediately dumped on the ground so I could use the bottle as a makeshift evidence container. It was an impulsive and unwise thing to do, but I knew for a fact that when the body entered into that helicopter, that it might as well be entering into a fever dream. The cleanup crew's ground team would do their work at a superhuman speed with unrealistically detailed efficiency. I fumbled the bottle back into my pocket just in time to see our park guy enter the area. It was only a few moments after that the crew's helicopter could be heard. It was going to be a ridiculous day filled with reports. Then there was the arbitrary tests we had to endure afterwards. Anytime one of these things were killed or killed an agent, there was a 72-hour mid-range period before you could go back into active field work. But during this mid-range period, you'd be bombarded by bands of psychologists, psychoanalysts, physicians, dietitians, hypnotherapists, and whichever field supervisor was on the boss's shit list so they could start the process of making sure you're fit to continue the operations. 72 hours straight. No sleep. Eat during the process. Nothing you can do but listen to those pencil-neck eggheads ask a million questions, then write in their little book. My understandings of this process, if they, for whatever reason, deem you've not complied to the fullest, or you fail, then you'll be in prison for a year while your paperwork will be altered to reflect whatever narrative they'll set in motion. There'll be a generous severance package, of course, usually issued under the final wishes of some relative who's long been dead or that you've never met. They'll burn your ledger, falsify your documents to reflect your brand new criminal past, and sever all ties. You'll be a petty criminal and a practical ghost. That's what I risked when I took that sample that day. But I have no regrets. What was to happen next, though, changed my life forever.
Good evening, Mr. Director.
What exactly was taken from the scene tonight?
Sir, all I'm aware of is that there were samples that were taken and put into a pill bottle.
That is very troubling to me.
I'm sincerely sorry, Mr. Director. I should have shot him.
Yes, son. You should have. It's okay, though.
Yeah, you see, we were at the park one day, and there was this little black kid. He fell and he hurt his knee off this ballroom, and his mother came over. She was very distressed and distraught, and I really felt bad for the lady. You know what I mean? And Well, Mikey, he was over there. He was in the ranger station, you know, we just part people. We don't do the ranger stuff. But you see, they trust the plot people with the real truth of the matter. Because we're locals, a lot of us are affected by the creature. And we know how to keep our mouths shut, you know what I mean? We're New Yorkers, we know town too. So we get Mikey up there, he'd say, hey, go up in the station and see if you see the, whatever pushed them. You can't say something pushed them off around. You can't see something pushed them off around, you know what I mean? I thought maybe he was a little busy from the fall or something. But no, I'm not to push it, kid. There was nothing around here. There's only a couple of boulders here and there, you know? But he swapped them down and up. They said that there was a boulder there, and he thought it was a boulder that he started moving on him. You know, rolling down. What are you going to do? The key wild that the kid was lying. You know, they tell us about these things, and of course, because such vibe, they tell us how to do our jobs in an efficient manner and keep our mouths shut. That's what you gotta do. You gotta really look at it like this. You gotta keep your mouth shut. And you can't be talking to nobody family about these things because they'll scare the life out of them. Yeah, but don't scare the life out of them, they won't believe you. You know what I mean? Who's gonna believe there's monsters in the plot? I mean, you know? I'm gonna come to the same plot when I was a little kid. We did hot dogs and we had a tent one time, man. We had a good time. It was a blast. My daddy dressed up like a wild Indian, you know what I mean? He had a thumb and hawk and he was on a scalpers. We was there, we was the cowboys. It was good times. But those was all yesterdays, all those yesterdays, right? Like the Beatles say, man. I'll tell you what, it's not about the all those yesterdays once these monsters get loose. When these monsters get loose out of these clouds, y'all understand, they're completing the food choices. This is 1987, at the fight in the food zones, right? That was going to be in 1997, 2007. But you see, going back to the librarian, he says that in the year 2000, the world's not at the end. And he says something about computer chips and viruses. I don't know nothing about no chips. I know Doritos, huh? And when the simple truth of the matter is, we've lost us at this part. At the part, there's nothing you can do about it, there's nothing I can do about it. The Rangers don't even know. They don't know mistletoe from elbows, honey. They come with their chest poked out and they're smoking about it like they got some authority. When one of these hits is going to hold them and start whooping their ass, but I mean, look about us. A lot of these guys, they're military too, you know what I mean? They talk all that tough talk, like, I'll do this and I'll do that. One time, Mike, he came up behind one and hit him right in the back of the head with a shovel. The guy was fucking his shit, and it'll be too much for this thing. He hit him right in the back of the head with a shovel, so boom, elk a ball in the ducky. And then, you know, it is what it is.